You are stupid. 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 And don't forget, you are stupid.
What's going on, my beautiful gun shoes, Gunntards, and gun stands? Hit like, subscribe, and follow me on, well, whatever social media I'm about to start. I get boggled in my mind with the minds of gun shoes, Gunntards, and gun stands because you bozos give me tons of amusement out on the internet, right here on YouTube or Threads or Twitter, whatever, because you just can't think right. I mean, there comes a point when an individual becomes so fanatic about his own code that not thinking like a human being becomes such a normal stance for them, and particularly the whole thing of Superman was a major hit and all of the made-up statistics to protect you from the facts that you choose to use in your ridiculous conversations. So let's start with the controversy that Superman was a box office flop, which it was. There is no controversy about that, even though you bozos think it otherwise, even after reading that Forbes article, which I'll post here, like I posted on the very first fantastic and epic video of this channel, Super Punk. You can see the thumb there, and I invite you to watch it over and over again. So, a few months ago, and a few months after the release of DIAPERMAN, aka James Gunn's Superman, Forbes magazine published an article stating that James Gunn's latest disintegration of the DC universe actually dug a hole of $42 million. Simple math, just as logic as watching, I don't know, maybe your own bank account. By the end of the article, you have the statement that cuts through the filthy souls of Gunntards who rise in the morning saying, James Gunn Superman is better than Man of Steel. Zack Snyder killed that character. It's even better than Richard Donner's Superman. It's the best superhero movie of all times. So let me read, because I comprehend the cognitive limitations of these guys, so I'm going to read and also post the text here on screen to help them, so you guys can finally see the truth. Superman had a production budget of $225 million plus a worldwide marketing budget of $125 million, Variety reported after the film was released in theaters in July. Given that the films generally split their ticket sales 50-50 with theater owners, this means that Superman's theatrical net equates to nearly $308 million. The amount, of course, does not reflect any residuals that are being paid out or other miscellaneous expenses associated with the film. Even going with it $308 million before taking the other expenses into account, Superman's net falls below the $350 million Warner Bros. Spent on the production of the film and marketing. But the mercy stroke comes at the end, like I said. Whether Superman will ultimately end up making or losing money, though, it is yet to be determined, since Warner Bros. Will earn money from premium video on demand, streaming video on demand, and other revenue streams, including dollars earned from licensed merchandise. And in other words, Superman's performance on the box office, the very heart of a movie, was, by lack of better expression, not only mid, but a black hole of Warner Brothers money and a big no one cares in the global movie market. However, a few weeks later, on the verge of the bids for Warner Brothers, temporarily won by Netflix, time would tell, Forbes came up with another article and made gun bozos go, "What did I tell you? Superman was profit. We're bigger than Snyder, Man of Steel. Snyder cultists are idiots as usual." There's even a little report published by Warner Brothers to reiterate that, so let's check it out. So this article, initially, was written by a certain Mark Hughes, a guy said to love Zack Snyder, so his opinions, of course, are credible, are unbiased, you can read them, no worries, but let's check what he says here. There's a lot of mistaken analysis out there about GUNN, the DCU, and Superman. Some websites, mostly on low-quality fan sites that push rumors and clickbait, are trying to spin things as if Superman is some sort of box office failure and that the onuses are interested. The film generated more than 100 million in profits, had great reviews and audience scores, and did big numbers in theaters and home entertainment. But you can safely ignore it and anyone pushing those false narratives. What's actually happening is very simple. Warner Bros. Discovery is up for buyout, and some fans want certain studios to buy it and fire a gun to reinstall whatever personal preferences those fans have about DC movies. The theory is that studios will see fans acting mad and hear fan blogs claiming Superman was a failure, and that somehow those studios executives will be generally ignorant enough of how movies and box office and profits work to fall for it. Hint, they aren't. Any changes a buyer wanted to implement will likely fall within a narrow range, but I think the primary DCU plans will remain as is. I think the primary DCU plans will remain as is. Okay, so he does not provide any proof at all that James Gunn's Superman really reached the $100 million profit, which, proven as it is, did not come from the box office, the real test of a movie. And at the same time, he kicks out Snyder fans of the conversation. Everybody got that on point when he says some fans want certain studios to buy it and fire a gun to reinstall whatever personal preferences those fans have about DC movies. So this is the typical writer, YouTuber, whatever, saying, hey, I don't hate Snyder, I just don't like his bad fans. And as usual, nothing here is presented to support what he has to say. In other words, trust my opinion for it's just as worth as solid information, whatever. It's full of spite and rancor over a fan base that he does not appreciate. And the fact that Snyder fans insist on having things reinstalled is only because even numbers support that they should. While Gunntards rated the IMDb and IGN site to make sure that Superman was the best movie of 2025 after the threat that the Snyderverse could be restored via Netflix or the Arabs of Paramount, Snyder fans did the right thing. They stormed HBO and made Man of Steel a streaming hit, and the weeks after DIAPERMAN was released, and the general audience, the ones that matter, also follow the same path because for them, SUPERSQUIRREL sucks. It's like going to your parents' house, having a so-so dinner, and driving by Burger King to get an actual meal. That was the feeling. You can't fight it. So the overall approach of this Mark Hughes guy who wrote this article is that he loves Zack Snyder, but not his fans. So you can trust him, just like a certain YouTube guy here that we know about. But even though his vision, he presented zero proof of what he stated, all of a sudden, up and away, Warner Bros. Publishes a salvation report that made the gun stands go again. Oh, look at those Snyder tards. We are right. The DCU is ahead, and the Snyder tard force will never come back again. Cope hard. Ho, 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 ho. Look at that Snyder cultist. The document says, due to the strong performance of Superman. No. Just do the damn math. Superman's box office was feeble, weak. It made a whole of $42 million. These are numbers and facts. But wait, this profit, that's a strong performance that he said 100 to 150 million that this Hughes guy stated with no real report showing means that WB stacked merchandising and streaming and home video performance, making the said $100 million profit. No proof in favor, so you can't prove it against. But isn't it exactly what the first article said? Let's read it back. Whether Superman will ultimately end up making or losing money, though, it is yet to be determined, since Warner Bros. Will earn money from premium video on demand, streaming video on demand, and other revenue streams, including dollars earned from licensed merchandising. So this is basically like saying, yeah, we know it was terrible in the box office, but we know we're getting this whole stack from other sources, if you haven't got that yet. So I'm going to use an example here that maybe you bozos, tards, and shills might not know, but if you ever dare to watch something other than dogs peeing and raiding pet shops or talking raccoons, there's a movie called The Big Short, amazing by the way, which explains the global bank crisis in 2008, in which damn lying Wall Street guys got bad loan payers with mid-good loan payers, real estate, etc., and put them in this pack with some actual good players here and there, and sold that pack as if it was all prime payers. Well, they had these actual holes of problematic loans that would never be paid. It's like getting a raw fish and put it with fresh fish in a soup and serve it as a top chef dish or the dish of the day, whatever. So this is what Warner Brothers did in a way by putting out their report, meaning that because of Superman, and not mentioning, for example, the extremely more successful in all areas Brad Pitt's Formula One movie and so many others, because of Superman, Warner had a strong year. That's a lie! Lies! It's a huge lie, and they expect dumb people like you, Gunntards and gun shields, to believe it. Imagine if we took in consideration what are the figures of Man of Steel across the years with streaming and other marketing on its own stack. We'll talk about that a little later in this video. Also, back at that Superman versus Man of Steel article, James Gunn had the narcissistic nerve of stating that Superman isn't a known commodity in some places, and it also affects things. We have a certain amount of anti-American sentiment around the world right now. It isn't really helping us. That Forbes article there's a statement by James Gunn, which is the pristine reflection of the minds of Gunn fans in believing in such dumb things and blatant lies, when Superman's logo, just his shield, is the third most well-known symbol in the world, only losing to the Catholic cross and Coca-Cola logo. And as of now, Superman is much more a global symbol rather than an American thing, the truth, justice, and American way that doesn't exist anymore. That is the dumbest, most dishonest thing a director could say about an IP like Superman, and it is why it's so easily repeated by his stars, shields, and stans.
What you just said is one of the most insanely idiotic things I have ever heard. Everyone in this room is now dumber for having listened to it.
Argumentation-wise, it is just as bad as the continuation of that Mark Hughes article on Superman's big success, as he says, Gunn's Superman is the most popular superhero of 2025, and it reset audience interest in DC with a box office result at least 40% or more higher than any of the previous 9 DCU movies from the past 8 years. It beat all 3 Marvel Studios releases this year, including Marvel's summer tentpole. Fantastic for first steps, of course. Superman also earned universal critical acclaim and high audience scores, as well as strong streaming numbers and home entertainment sales and rentals. The film will have generated significantly more than $100 million in profits and approaching $150 million globally when it all is said and done this year. It is not a failure. It didn't underperform. It was widely beloved by mainstream audiences and most fans, and no amount of resentment or wishes or lies will change those facts. In other words, Superman is a hit because I said so. You gotta believe me, and if it didn't work out as it should, it's not Gunn's fault. Really? Really? It's not amazing to see you Gunntards repeating that because it really suits you. If it was Zack Snyder saying what James Gunn said about Rebel Moon, Gunntards would be, look at that Snyder loser, give an excuse for Snyder does about his flop movie. Now, as my own mercy strike, I'm using once again numbers and logic from a cross comparison between the latest movie iterations of Superman Returns, Man of Steel, and SUPERSQUIRREL, and ta-da! Man of Steel as a benchmark. It beats every one of them. Just check the numbers right in front of you.
Loser.
And it's a landslide victory in comparison to SUPERSQUIRREL. It's a landslide victory of Superman Returns, of Super Beat Up, which was Brett Ratner's Evelina Richard Donner. That was probably his mistake. By the way, an amazing, proper Warner Brothers movie with one of the most injustice soundtracks ever, winning, and so much better than Gunn's movie, and Superman there had on these two. So this is it, my dear Gun Shields, Gunntards, and Gun Stands. This is the truth, nothing more than the truth, nothing beyond the truth, in the name of Zack Snyder. I could repeat that 31 times.